How's it going? I kind of wanted to do a part 2 video on how we don't really know anything, and then I saw a quote that was really compelling to me, and suddenly I feel like things made sense, so I wanted to make a video about that, and then I'll get around to part 2 of the we don't know anything video at some other point, maybe in another week or so. I saw a quote from Vivekananda. Okay, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, and he basically said, the true insight is that there are no others. Okay, and I've stopped and I reflected on that, and I was like, what does that mean? Okay, there are no others. And then it hit me. After studying philosophy for years now, I've understood that most of the philosophers would say similar things. How we come from one source, and things along those lines. And then for some reason, Vivekananda's quote really sunk it into me. There are no others. Okay, if you understand a little bit of background on this overall philosophy, it's that we come from one source. Okay, our soul, our essence, is consciousness. Okay, if you're not conscious, you're not alive. Your body, which came from the earth, which the ancients believed was a conscious being itself, the earth itself. Okay, had life and consciousness of its own. If that body is not animated by the soul, okay, it is not alive. Okay, that's why whenever you see a corpse on the ground, it's not moving, it looks asleep. There is no consciousness there to it. There is no movement to it. There is no animating fire, as the ancients call it, propelling the body forward. There is no life there. So what is that life essence? The soul. The soul is the essence of the consciousness of the cosmos. Okay, and we come from that same source. So in effect, right, we are the same person. Okay, to be a little bit overly simplistic for the sake of explanation here. So when Kananda says, true insight is there are no others, okay, it suddenly becomes clear with that context of what I just said, it suddenly becomes clear what that means, right? So when you act towards others, when I act towards others, okay, I am actually acting towards myself. Okay, and that's where quotes like, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if you are one with me as I am one with the Father, you will be one with the Father, things like that. Okay, like we are in essence all one. We came from the same earth. Our bodies came from the same earth, which was conscious. And our animating essence, our animating being, our consciousness came from one source as well. Because in essence, those people are not others. They are made of the same essence you are. The earth of the ground, the body from the earth, and the soul from the essence of consciousness. And the Hindus call it prana. The Chinese, I believe, call it chi. The Western occultists call it ether. It's the essence that everything is made of, that infuses everything, because if it wasn't infused by this essence, it wouldn't be. Okay, so we literally are a coagulated substance, right? A collective substance of the same source. Okay, so not to overly explain it and lose its meaning, but we come from the same source in essence. Okay, so when you act towards others, you are not acting towards others, you are acting on yourself, because we are all part of the same being, the same consciousness. And I would argue, personally, I feel like my motives, my will, comes from a good place. So when I act towards somebody, generally speaking, I'm acting from a good place, out of a care for someone else, right? But however, sometimes when I'm acted from other people, when other people act towards me, depending on what happens there, the context of the situation or the action being taken, I could take it the wrong way and feel like maybe their intentions aren't good, right? But if we're coming from a unified essence, perhaps their intentions are good too. Perhaps they don't have ill intentions towards me as I don't have ill intentions towards them. Okay, because we all come from one source. We have a same consciousness. Now, is that to say there's no evil in the world? That's not what I'm saying. Okay, there is the essence of evil out there, right? But generally speaking, if you read what the philosophers had to say, evil stems from ignorance, right? And righteousness or good stems from knowledge. So people are not necessarily acting towards you out of a state of malice. Perhaps they just don't quite understand what's going on. And then that ties in with Stoicism, right? So Don't worry about outside events, right? Don't worry about what other people are doing towards you. Worry about what you can control, which is yourself, your own internal processes, your own internal motives. You can control those, your own actions. You can't control other people, because in effect, perhaps those people, are acting from a place of goodness in their heart. Maybe they're acting knowledgeably and you're acting ignorantly. So we don't know. So, it's important that we constantly seek wisdom, seek the good, seek knowledge, right? Seek understanding of another person's point of view. And this ties in with my first video on how we don't really know anything, right? And so it's important to really seek knowledge, seek wisdom, understand we are from one essence. Because generally speaking, if people are from the same consciousness you are, that means people probably have the same good motives you do. Maybe they're just acting from a state of ignorance, or maybe we are, right? So with that in mind, with the fact that we are one, it's important that we all treat each other as one. So when you act hatefully towards another, you're actually acting hatefully towards yourself. When you hate yourself, you actually hate others. And that's why it makes sense that those who are the angriest in the inside, that loathe themselves, right, don't necessarily treat others well, because they hate themselves internally, and so it projects outward, right? And so it's one of those things where, but if you love yourself, you can more easily love others, and if you love others, you love yourself. It's like a mirror projection of what's going on consciously. You can kind of look at it as we're one, so there's one soul, one big consciousness that all of our individual consciousness emanate into a body from, okay? So we are essentially, if you really think about it, okay, if we truly came from the Creator, the Grand Creator, from a breath of life, from prana, from chi, whatever it is, from whatever it is that just simply is, okay? We came from like an oversoul into little bodies, okay? And each of our individual souls is having a conscious experience of the larger overarching one consciousness, okay? And when we die, our souls return to that over consciousness, okay? So that's the way to look at it. So we are one consciousness, one soul, having individual experiences, many individual experiences, okay? And you can find this, if you read various philosophers, you can find this, kind of idea attributed as well. So, one soul having many individualized experiences, okay? So that's important to understand. We are one soul having many experiences in different individualized bodies with different circumstances, okay? There's not actually others, it's just we're experiencing something different, okay? So we need to understand that when we act towards others, we're basically, acting towards ourselves. All right, so another thing that's important to understand is that along these lines is Mother Earth, okay? So I'm going to sound, kind of mystical here when I go into this, but the philosophers understood that the earth, which everything comes from physically, okay, which gives it physical form, much like a mother gives a baby physical form when the baby emerges from the mother, okay? The earth, which we emerge from, is our mother, okay? So we all come from the same mother, the same earth, okay? And I know I've said that several times, but that's true. So that was the overarching view of that. So if we come from the same mother, that would mean that we're brothers, would it not? Yeah. If we all have the same mother, we're at least half brothers. But then if you take a little bit step further, we come from the same source of consciousness. We all have consciousness, which comes from the same place as well. Just like our physical bodies come from, a physical earth, our souls, our spirit, our emanating essence, our animating essence, comes from the Father, right? Which is the soul, the consciousness of everything, which pervades everything, gives everything motion, and gives life to everything. The positive force, right? And then the receptive force, the negative force, is the Mother Earth. Okay, so you have a father and a mother, and then here we're alive, right? And then that's reflected, on the micro scale of an actual physical father and mother. You can kind of see how nature how kind of as above, so below, right? So it's one of those things where the macro is a reflection of the micro, and the micro is a reflection of the macro, right? So, the big is a reflection of the small, and the small is the big, right? So, you have the planets up and, swirling around the sun, right? And then if you drill down microscopically, you have protons and neutrons, swirling around a nucleus, okay? Everything is a reflection of each other, okay? So a mother and a father giving birth to a child, okay, is a reflection of how nature works. The soul and the earth coming together and giving birth to life, to a physical form of life that's animated by a soul. So in essence, we are all one. We are actually all brothers. We just don't realize it. Okay. And so that's, one of my first videos, it's ironic, is actually more of a mystical video, because of the quote by, Vivekananda. But it's interesting because, I didn't expect to go this way with it, but it was definitely an interesting quote and definitely inspired me. I encourage you all to do your own reading into philosophy. I recommend starting with Plato. That's where I started, and then working from there. Gives you a lot of good stuff. Plato writes in the form of a dialogue, with Socrates and, various experts in his time, and comes to the conclusion he doesn't know anything. And what's interesting is, I might have a lot of, I come from a Christian background. I expect confrontation from Christians, at this point, because, I come from that background. I know their linguistics and how they do not necessarily believe in the oneness thing, or that evil is caused through ignorance. They believe that ignorance is caused through the devil. Now, a lot of people have this viewpoint, and I challenge this, especially, specifically from a Christian standpoint. What was the one thing Jesus said when he was dying on the cross? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Okay, they didn't know. They didn't know. They were following orders. The Romans were following orders. The teachers were following orders. The masses, the mob shouting "Crucify" was following orders. They didn't know. Okay, they didn't know what was happening according to the story, right? And Christ recognized that. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. We don't know anything. Okay, we're ignorant. We follow ignorant sources in many cases. We follow ignorant sources of information, ignorant leaders. Okay, we follow various sources of ignorance, which is in, the blind leading the blind makes us do foolish and perceptively evil things. So even he understood that ignorance was the cause of that evil, of them putting him to death. Okay, so everything I've studied, okay, Christian friends, Christian brothers, okay, everything I've studied in philosophy and in mysticism and in the occult, okay, is reconcilable with Scripture 1-to-1. Okay, so either one or two things happen. Either philosophy is true, so thereby it agrees with truth of the Bible, or the Bible copied the truth of philosophy. One of the two, but they both agree with each other. You can always find agreement in these various teachings because these various people teaching also held the truth as well. Okay, so it's important to understand that, and that's why there's Jesus made quotes, Gandhi made quotes, Confucius made quotes, Plato, all these others, all the philosophers, they basically more or less come from an angle of we don't know anything, okay, and then also we are of one essence, right? And then you have philosophers with different various viewpoints that don't necessarily agree with the ancients or agree with the mystics and that kind of thing. And I view mysticism, and I'll make a video on this separately one day. I view mysticism and philosophy as two sides of the same coin. They talk about the same thing, they just use different semantics. But yeah, we are all one. It's becoming more and more evident the more I study. We come from the same earth, the same source of consciousness, and it's important that we understand that from the context of our actions towards others. So, always try to do well unto others, because in essence, you are affecting yourself. Okay, so if you want to come from it from a more self-consumed mindset, do well unto others, because if you're doing well unto others, you're doing well for yourself, right? And if you're doing well for yourself, you're doing well for others. So take care of yourself, take care of others, always care for others. And, and our oneness, I believe, will become more evident the more people start acting from that kind of mindset. So anyway, it was just kind of an off-the-wall video from that quote. I found it inspiring. Tried to explain it to the best of my ability. I hope you found this inspiring and enlightening. Like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know your thoughts. I love talking about this. And, I'll make another video soon. Thanks, guys.